Town Clerk, you're
Thank
on
you,
mute.
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are now live streaming on YouTube.
Thank you, Town Clerk.
I don't
Welcome
know if
to
you're
this.
able to. I don't know if you're able to hear me, Madam Mayor. We are live streaming on YouTube.
Thank you. I did reply. Thank you, Town Clerk. Can you hear me? Yeah. Welcome to this meeting of the Tavistock Town Council. I'm Councillor Anne Johnson, Mayor of Tavistock Town Council. I will now ask members present to indicate by physical show of hands that they can hear proceedings. For any joining by audio link, I will come to you shortly. So can you show by show of hands that you can hear me, please? Thank you. That's everybody who's present at the moment. Do we have anybody by audio link, Town Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor, everyone is on video today.
Thank you very much. We will now take a roll call of councillors present. Mrs Smallacombe, can you take the roll call, please?
Councillor Mrs Johnson.
Present.
Councillor Hutton.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Crawford.
Present.
Councillor James Ellis. Councillor Mrs Ewings.
Present.
Councillor Fay. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Mrs Mann.
Present.
I can't see Councillor Moody. Oh, Councillor Moody's just joining by the look of it. There's Councillor Moody.
Yeah, I'm present.
Councillor Mrs Parker.
Present.
Councillor Parker.
Present.
Councillor Barry Smith.
Present.
Councillor Harry Smith.
Present.
I can't see Councillor Venning. Councillor Ward.
Present.
And Councillor Williamson.
Present.
Councillor Benning has just telephoned me to say he can't get in. Can somebody get in touch with him, please, and send him the link and the password? No, he's had it already. Right, sorry, my machine wouldn't unmute then. Right, thank you very much. Councillors and officers are asked to ensure that they have included their name against their thumbnail video so that they can be clearly identified by viewers. Now, I take this opportunity to remind councillors that subject to certain conditions, standing orders provide for speaking once on each item on the agenda. Members who wish to speak are asked to use the Zoom raise hand facility, or you can wave your hand or send a message to Jan or me. The quorum for this council is 6. We have many more than that attending tonight. May I remind councillors and the public that the documents for this meeting are available on the council website. Please note that members are asked not to use the shared document facility in this meeting. In addition, may I remind you all to stay muted until called to speak and to remute once you have spoken. When I call you to speak, I will state your name. In the interest of transparency, try not to use the comments facility to communicate during the meeting, other than with myself in the open forum. In no circumstances should it be used for private discussions. Voting will either be by assent or of the members or by roll call vote. For a roll call, members are asked to state either for, against, or abstain when asked. If a councillor declares an interest, they will be temporarily removed from the meeting until the matter has been resolved and then readmitted. When the public part of the meeting concludes, there will be a brief adjournment for 10 minutes to enable councillors to log back in for the confidential part of the proceedings. Thank you. Do we know if we've made any progress with Councillor Venning, please? Town Clerk?
I don't know. I think Mrs Smallacombe is just in the process of unmuting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mrs Smallacombe?
I have just sent him the link again and I phoned him, so hopefully he can now join the meeting.
Well done. Thank you very much indeed. That's great. Right, to start the meeting proper then. Item 1, apologies for absence. I know Councillor Squire has sent his apologies. Are there any others, Town Clerk, please?
Only that one, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. To receive disclosures of unregistered other interest from councillors on matters to be considered at the meeting. The disclosure shall include the nature of the interest. If a member becomes aware during the course of a meeting of an interest that has not been disclosed under this item, they must immediately disclose it. Under the Code of Conduct, councillors with an interest, whether or not it is a disclosable pecuniary interest or other interest, must leave the room for the duration of consideration of the item to which the interests relate. Now move on to item 3, minutes of the council meeting. To confirm the minutes of the meeting of Tavistock Town Council held on Tuesday, the 28th of July. I have 2 amendments to those minutes. Page 1, item 15 should read Tavistock and District Outdoor Education Forum. And sorry, I thought there was another one. I think that's it. Sorry, just the one this time. Were there any other comments? Are these a true record of the meeting? Thank you. Can we have show those in favour of accepting these minutes, please show. Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you. Right, any matters arising, please? Can I ask under item 20, it said noted that a borough councillor undertook to obtain data on the issuing of dog orders by West Devon locality officers and report back. Did we have a report back, Town Clerk, please?
I've not received one from the borough councillor, but we did, as officers, just make an inquiry, and the answer we received was, well, we asked in relation to the past 3 years, and we were advised there hasn't been an order issued or an enforcement order issued either in Tavistock or, I believe, if memory serves me rightly, within the district area.
Thank you for that. Right, any other matters arising, please? Councillor Mrs. Mann.
I'm very sorry, Madam Mayor, but I seem to have very slow internet tonight. I'm wondering if it would be all right if I can stop my video so that I can get better audio connection.
Yes, of course.
I will still be here, and if I speak, I'll turn my video back on.
Right, thank you. I hope this is not a reoccurrence of Tavistock North like we had last Tuesday, because I'm on the end of the line, so won't be good with it. Okay, right, thank you. Any other matters arising? No. 4, public representations and questions. Do we have any, Town Clerk, please?
None received, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Items requiring a decision. Item 5, Budget and Policy Committee. To consider the minutes of the meeting of the Budget and Policy Committee held on Tuesday, the 8th of September 2020. Councillor Hutton, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Reading from the minutes, I'll present them. 48, election of chairman. 49, election of vice chairman. 50, apologies for absence. 51, confirmation of minutes. 52, declaration of interest. Items for recommendation to council. 53, emergency financial planning. The recommendations that the council endorse and adopt: 1, the revenue savings outlined in the report; 2, the deployment of the general reserve and the making available of the cemetery reserve to address the revenue position of the council; 3, that a further detailed review of actual as against projected income be undertaken early in Q3 as per the budget setting; and 4, the preparation of further reports to inform both continuing in-year review and the upcoming budget setting process. Anybody want any discussion on that? That's a recommendation to council.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation. Do we have a seconder for those recommendations, please? Councillor Smith, thank you. Open to debate. Anybody have any questions, comments? Right, put it to the vote then, please. Those in favour, please show. Thank you.
Shall I
Continue, please, Councillor Hutton.
Thank you. 54 website accessibility regulations. Recommended that Council endorse the approach currently being undertaken as detailed in the next steps section of the report. That's another recommendation which I will propose. Graham Parker, please.
Sorry, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we were to endorse this, would that preempt any discussion on item 8 on the agenda?
The Town Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, this doesn't preempt the discussion. Essentially, this sets out the framework and the work that's been undertaken. What you have subsequently on the agenda is the accessibility statement and the roadmap, if you like, which are consequential upon this. And they are the documents which will actually go onto the council website. This is really background to it to explain how we got to where we are and what the obligations and requirements are. Thank you.
So this one is just the approach and the actual detail is in item 8. I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, so we have a recommendation from Councillor Hutton. Do we have a seconder for that recommendation, please? Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Anybody have any questions? Right, can we put that to the vote then, please? Those in favour, please show. Thank you. Continue, please, Councillor Hutton.
Thank you. 55 Drake statue. A slight change to this. Recommended that the council commission a set of high definition photos of the statue, including the 3 unique bas relief panels, for which the council retains copyright, which can be used in electronic and print media at a cost of £200. See above. Councillor Ewings has got her hand up.
Yeah, Councillor Mrs Ewings.
Has Councillor Ewings frozen?
I think so, looks like it.
Shall I carry on till she comes back?
Yeah, it looks like she might have left now and coming back in again.
Right. The B is add a separate page to the council website for the full history of the erection of the statue and Sir Francis Drake. And the fourth one or the third one we want to approve the location of the panel on council property at Mrs. Wedd's Arboretum behind the wall on the northeast pavement near the Drake statue roundabout. And the third one, the C, I'm going to hand over to the clerk, please, because there's been a bit of discussion, I know, between members of the committee looking into Drake statue and the mayor and the clerk today. So can I hand over to the clerk, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, my understanding is from conversations I've had with some of the members involved that it's suggested that we disaggregate the 2 components which are in item 3. So first of all, it will be to approve the use of the logos for the Town Council, Historic England and Tavistock Heritage Trust. And secondly, this is just to clarify the position, and my apologies because I think I had failed when we had the budget and policy meeting to properly understand the specific nature of the discussion, is to approve the language acknowledging the council's role in putting up the sign. And that is as distinct from approving the language in the sign, which of course sits with Tavistock Heritage Trust as the commission body in relation to this. So this is specifically a phrase or a sentence which will cover the role of the council in why the sign went up. So the suggestion would be, if you're happy, Madam Mayor, that we take those 2 as disaggregated ones in case there is any view in relation to one or the other, as the case may be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's the proposal, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you. So we have a proposal before us. Do we have a seconder for that proposal?
Just
Councillor
before you
Murphy?
move to the vote, Madam Mayor, Councillor Ewings is just rejoining. I don't know if you want to, if she is able to, because she did want to speak on the item. Sorry to interrupt.
Right, thank you. Sorry, we've had a Councillor Mrs Ewing, then Councillor Parker. Did you wish to speak, Mrs Parker? Councillor Mrs Ewing.
Oh no, it's gone again.
No, it isn't, Mandy.
Oh, I don't even know what you're on because I've disappeared
Right,
and I've
thank
had
you.
to re-log in again, so I don't even know where you are.
Right, I'm sorry, we're on item budget and policy 55 Drake statute, the recommendations, and we thought you wanted to speak to them.
Do I?
Your hand was up, Mandy, when you disappeared.
Oh no, that was voting for the other issue. That's when I froze.
Right, okay, thank you.
Sorry, folks.
Right, thank you. Right, any comments or questions on these recommendations, please? Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, are we going to discuss what the proposed language is to go on the board?
I think that's, I'll ask the town clerk to come on back on that, but I think that's in the language will be provided by Tavistock Heritage Trust, who are preparing the boards. Town clerk.
Just to clarify, the language of the overall panel content will be provided by and approved by Tavistock Heritage Trust. I think the language that Councillor Ellis is referring to is the specific introductory sentence or line or paragraph, whatever it is, which relates to the reason why the town council sponsored the board, and that was the intention of the amendment that we have put towards the item little c here. So I think the question therefore is, I mean, this is a recommendation to approve that, but it isn't actually specifically saying that we are approving the language which was placed in the report. So that either means we approve the language that was in the report, we agree a different form of language now, or alternatively, you have something submitted to you at a future date in order that you can approve it. So you've got those three options available to you.
Councillor Ellis, did you wish to come back?
I mean, I'm quite happy either to approve the language now or refer it to the next budget and policy.
Well, can you decide which you'd like to ask, please?
Well, if we refer it to the next budget and policy and discuss it there.
Is that acceptable to members, or do members want to make a decision on it today? Councillor Hutton, would you be acceptable to that?
I'm quite happy to discuss it at the next meeting, yes.
Right, thank you. So we've got those recommendations. I think they were seconded by Councillor Mrs Parker. Any other debate? Those in favour, please show. Can somebody who's got the television on please turn it off? Thank you. Right, continue please, Councillor Hutton.
56 capital projects, 57. Sorry, Councillor Harris Smith has got his hand up, Madam.
Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I don't know whether you're getting it, but it seems an awful lot of feedback from somewhere.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody's got the television on. I think
it was Councillor Ewing, Councillor Benning.
Yeah, I think that's better now that he's on mute. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. If I on this item 56, Madam Mayor, on that item, I refer the members to the report associated with it. Item 56 on the Budget and Policy Committee. The particular paragraph in the report is paragraph 2.3. Councillors will see from that paragraph that it refers to the Viridor applications, which were the subject of a visit from Penn representatives. That visit has taken place, and the hope is that even with more applications in the final round, more applications than they've ever had, we will be successful with at least one of the applications. Penn meet on the 24th of September to consider all the applications, and we all wait, hopefully with everything crossed, for that one. We also have been waiting for some months to take forward the appointment to the post of centre manager. We want to appoint it to the successful candidate from the selection process in which I took part. We heard at the end of last week the National Lottery Heritage Funding will be available to allow Tavistock Heritage Trust and Tavistock Town Council to take the matter forward. As members will have seen from the information circulated, the view of Tavistock Heritage Trust is that they require someone to be in position from October. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that update, Councillor Smith. Councillor Hutton, please continue.
Good, that sounded very good news. That's great. And finally, 57, winding up of Tavistock Locals Help. The other minutes will go into the part 2, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutton. Now move on to item 6, General Finance. Schedule of payments. To consider and endorse the monthly accounts as at the 31st of July. Everybody's had a chance to have a look at those, hopefully. No questions. B, budget monitoring. To consider and endorse the budget monitoring report as at the 31st of July. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have, before I make this comment, considered the note on the agenda against the items of general finance. However, my matter is not one of detailed questions, and it doesn't require a response tonight. It is, however, relative to an item detailed within the report, which accompanies item 6B. On the 8th of September, which was coincidentally the day of budget and policy, whose minutes we've just considered, the government published the results of an independent review into the effectiveness of local authority finance reporting and audit regimes in England. In response, Robert Jenrick said he remained committed to strengthening local audit, the cost of which is included in, a cost of ours is included in this report. He says he wants a system which works more effectively for the council taxpayer. The report, which was commissioned, was completed by Sir Tony Redmond, he has as one of his key recommendations the creation of a new body to oversee local audit. Also occurring frequently in that report is a conclusion that there is merit in all authorities setting up audit subcommittees reporting to council. The report even states that the ideal number of members for such a subcommittee is 7, who would be expected to avail themselves of an in-depth knowledge of the subject of audit. The clear view offered by the report is that the accounts prepared by local authorities give no transparency, and they say that in several places. These accounts give no transparency of the council's finances. The suggestion is that to assist with transparency, the production of what is called a standard statement of service and cost. This document should be in a format which allows any member of the public to compare actual spend against what was budgeted. To my great surprise, I have to say, the audit firms and the local authority representatives agreed and supported a view that the scope for audit firms to claim additional funds due to variations needs to be urgently reviewed. There is concern in the report over repeated or vexatious complaints having to be resolved by the audit provider. In conclusion, the report states that in England, it has become increasingly apparent that local audit arrangements fail to deliver what is expected by the government. The author of the report is confident that all Section 151 officers will respond efficiently and effectively to the final outcome. And I will say, Madam Mayor, I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Councillor Smith. I found that quite interesting. Be interesting to see how it progresses. Town Clerk, did you wish to comment on it at all?
It's not something I've had an opportunity to spend time on, but I think just by way of general observation, I think it wasn't that long ago that the Audit Commission was abolished. I think it is helpful that the government has had the opportunity to reconsider whether or not that was the right decision. The best value regime provided considerable information in relation to certainly larger councils within our sector, and the abolition of that did make a material change. And also, I think members will be aware, if they compare the accounts which are prepared by our accountant for us, which stretch to in the order of 23 or 24 pages, with the statutory accounts that government requires, which actually relate to, I think, the completion of 14 figures in 7 boxes of 2. Certainly the direction of travel in terms of transparency, accountability, and financial probity does seem to be something which is to be welcomed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So any other comments on 6B, Budget Monitoring Report? Councillor Mrs. Parker?
Yes, this is just a comment really, but it's a part of my concern about transparency. If you look at the total income figures, it looks, and you run your eye across those income figures, it looks like the council isn't too badly doing in terms of income. But if you check the figures going through the list, about 50% of that is due to loan proceeds and grant funding. And the actual income from all our activities is pretty poor, really. And we know about that. It would just be helpful to see a better annotation or more clarity between those items of income that are one-offs and that have nothing to do with the sort of activity that we undertake, but are part of a much bigger scheme, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, thank you. I certainly do understand it. I think when you're looking at these reports, you do need to go through it line by line to understand fully what is going on. So any other comments? Councillor Parker?
Yeah, I think that's your comment there is absolutely right. You do have to go through it line by line. Unfortunately, members of the public very often don't have the time or the ability, and they'll just go to the bottom line. So I think it's worth reinforcing the point that Jenny, that you alluded to, that somehow I think that picture has to come out of this report, and it doesn't quite yet.
Thank you. Is that something that we could look at Budget and Policy to see if we can change this report around a bit?
Yes.
Town Clerk, please.
We can certainly look at it. I mean, I think what I would say is, this is a standard reporting format. It's important that all the information is there, and that anybody who wishes to understand the financial position of the council actually does have that information available. For most councils, the primary sources of income the primary source of income will in fact be the precept. We do have other and diverse income streams, but it's important that these things are looked at in the round. And I would be hesitant to move away from a standard reporting format, which is understood across the sector and by people who would wish to understand what we do and how we do it, to something which was bespoke to ourselves, but was not effectively as understandable or as compliant with the general accounting principles for the sector. We do operate in accordance with what are called the JPAG guidance. That's national guidance in terms of what we do and how we do it. And I would be reluctant to move away from that, Madam Mayor, in terms of reporting mechanisms and measures.
Sorry, Councillor Parker.
Thanks. I absolutely understand. In the companies I've run, we always dealt with issues like this either with a footnote or a foreword, rather than tamper with the table in the document itself.
Okay. Thank you. So anything else on that item? Right, moving on then, please, to Development Management and Licensing Committee. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are three components to my contribution this evening. The minutes of the meetings of the 11th of August and the 1st of September, and then a third item relating to the council submitting comments to the Tavistock Conservation Area Appraisal Update and Management Plan Update. So I rise virtually to present the minutes of the meeting of the 11th of August. Commencing with 28, election of chairman, 29, election of vice chairman, 30, apologies for absence, 31, confirmation of minutes, 32, declarations of interest, 33, Dartmoor National Park Authority, 34, town planning issues. A, Cornwall and West Devon Mining Landscape World Heritage Site Management Plan. Council has been invited to comment on the proposed management plan, and this has been deferred until the next meeting of DMNL, by which time hopefully we will have had time to consider it in more detail. But there is a recommendation, I'm getting myself muddled, that the council support the management plan, but in particular two policies within this plan. Policy C5, proposals for renewable energy installations, and policy C7, development proposals, biodiversity and geological diversity. So that's a recommendation for council, Madam Mayor. You're still muted, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, sorry, Councillor Ward. Do we have a seconder for that recommendation, please? I'll second it. Right, open to debate. Anybody have any comments, questions they wish to raise? No. Councillor Parker?
Yeah, if I can just say that the comments have gone forward to the World Heritage Partnership in anticipation of council's approval, and generally the response throughout the region to that management plan is very, very good. So thank you for it. It was a good debate at the DM committee as well.
Thank you. Right, thank you for that. If we put that to the vote, then those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's passed. Right, continue please, Councillor Ward.
Thank you. 34B, Plymouth Road Development. Members will understand that this planning consent has given rise to a lot of debate and discussion, and members have been provided with a supplementary briefing document to provide further background to that. 34C, communication to WDBC ward members. Your committee felt that it was appropriate to try to improve the lines of communication between ourselves and the ward representatives on the Borough Council, and we therefore recommended that copies of Tavistock Town Council DM&L agendas and our decision lists arising from Appendix B be emailed to WDBC Tavistock ward members as a means of communication.
That's a recommendation which I'm happy to second. It's fairly straightforward. I don't think it's contentious at all. Anybody wish to make any comments? Can we vote, please? Those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you very much. Continue, please, Councillor Ward.
Thank you. 35, general correspondence. Nothing was received. 36, urgent business. 37A, planning decisions. And 37B, new planning applications. It is recommended that the views of the Town Council, as listed in Appendix B, be passed to the local planning authority for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. I'll second that. Anybody have any comments, questions? Those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. Continue, please, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I now move on to the meeting, or whenever it was, the 1st of September. 39 apologies for absence, 40 confirmation of minutes, 41 declarations of interest, 42 Dartmoor National Park Authority, 43 town planning issues, and there were 2 items here. 43A, we received an update from Devon County Highways relating to a roundabout at the Callington Road development. And 43B, we've been invited to comment at the West Devon Borough Council licensing policy consultation, and this has been deferred to the next meeting of DMNL to give members time to have a look at it and give it some thought. 44 general correspondence, 45 urgent business brought forward at the discretion of the chairman. We discussed an appeal to the planning inspectorate regarding refusal of consent to develop a site just to the south of the allotment gardens and pretty much adjacent to Buddle Quarry. The council has, our council has objected to this development twice because it was submitted, but we objected to it on both occasions on quite a long list of grounds. And therefore, we resolved that the chairman, me, would draft a document for submission to the planning inspector, setting out the town council's views and providing background that hopefully will help the planning inspector to come to an appropriate decision. That document has been drafted and will be going to DMNL next week for confirmation and any final fine-tuning.
Thank you. Can I just thank you for the work that you put into that and the members that commented on it as well? I know it was quite a substantial piece of work, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was very helpful having colleagues' input into that. That brings us to item 46, A, planning decisions, and 46B, new planning applications, and there is a recommendation. The views of the Town Council as listed in Appendix B be passed to the local planning authority for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. We've got a recommendation which I'm happy to second. Any questions or comments about it? Right, can we put it to the vote then, please? Those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. Continue, please, Councillor Ward.
Thank you. This brings us to item 7C on this evening's agenda, and this relates to a consultation on the Tavistock Conservation Area appraisal and update, and the accompanying document, the management plan and update. And one very significant item in the appraisal is an extension of the conservation area to the north, so that it would encompass the allotment gardens, which are not only of great amenity importance, but also of historic importance, and Buddle Quarry, which is recognised as being the sole remaining source of Herdwick stone, which will in due course be needed for the maintenance and repair of the classic buildings in the town. So we've been invited to comment on those documents, but in view of the timescales, we ask Council to grant delegated authority to the DMNL committee to enable us to do that, as it will be it won't be possible for us to consider it and then bring that back to full Council for ratification.
Thank you. The next meeting of DMNL is next Tuesday, which will give us time to consider it and make a proper response. Are we all in favour that that is delegated to DMNL to deal with that matter? Any comments, questions? Those in favour, please show. Right, thank you, that's carried. Thank you.
That concludes my contribution, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Ward. Move on now to item 8, which is website accessibility statement. To consider and adopt the website accessibility statement with regard to Tavistock Town Council's website. The report is included. We've received the report now. Open it up for debate. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Mrs. Mann first, please.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. The only concern I have is in relation to the videos of the live videos of our meetings being removed from the website due to the requirement that they be transcribed or have closed captioning. I think this item is kind of hidden. It's in the website roadmap PDF, which is the one that's a spreadsheet, and says the link to the meeting will be removed after recordings, after the scheduled meeting have been minuted, I guess. And that is coming up from the 23rd of September, which would mean that this is the first, or maybe the last full council meeting that would remain on our website for viewing by the public. And considering that the accessibility regulations were about accessing information, I'm not sure that that decision is in line with the intent of the legislation. And I think in the public interest, we should be considering instead coming up with a different assessment, possibly under the accessibility statement. We've exempted ourselves from complying in relation to images and PDFs that are old on the website because of disproportionate burden, which is based on cost and time involved with fixing the issues, making it sort of inappropriate for us to try and make those changes, which I totally understand. I would like to propose that we do the same with regard to the videos, the live videos of our council meetings, in order to preserve that for the public record, because I think it is in the public interest to have those retained. They are live videos, and live videos are exempt. I know that once they have sort of sit on the website, they aren't live anymore. But I would like to see us have more of a debate around it before we make a decision that they were just going to disappear from the council's website, and they would no longer be accessible for the public.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. I'm going to ask the Town Clerk to come in now, please, then Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the position is very much as I explained to Councillor Mann when we discussed the matter earlier. Historic videos will be treated in the same way in terms of disproportionate burden as those items that she has identified, because they are historic and because we are in a position to be able to do so. Live streaming of meetings, so what we are currently doing at this moment in time, is not covered by the regulations. However, videos which are retained and which are held and which are curated and are the responsibility of the body concerned, which videos of our meetings are, even though we may choose to post them to another website, they still continue to be our responsibility, as we understand it, are captured. And what we've effectively tried to do is to provide a compromise solution. That solution is to ensure that so going forwards, from the 23rd of September, which is the implementation date, any video of the 3 meetings which we currently video, Council, Budget and Policy and DM&L, will remain accessible and available on the website until the next normal scheduled meeting of that committee or of the Council. That means at the point when the minutes come to be confirmed, everybody will still have access to the last video, but thereafter they will not, and that will be removed. So at any given moment in time, there'll be 1 meeting of each one of those. And what that does is it means that if we do get asked for information in alternative formats, our liability is limited to 3 meetings at any given moment in time. disproportionate burden going forward is not going to be an eligible excuse or explanation when we have actively chosen to place those records out there and to then accumulate them. So this is really a way of trying to ensure that whilst the information is live, bear in mind that at the point the minutes are confirmed, the legal record is the set of minutes. Those minutes, if you like, take precedence. The video then falls away, but you will still have your historic ones. Organisationally, we do not have the resources that large principal councils have in terms of transcription, provision of alternative formats in the event that we were to be asked to provide that information. And I think we have to accept the fact that if we're going to seek to comply with the letter and the spirit of the regulations, that at this moment in time, it's hard to see we can do otherwise. Clearly, both in relation to this area and in relation to all the areas which are covered by these regulations, what we will find is over the next few months and probably 1 or 2 years, there will be developments, there will be clarifications from the regulator. Now, at that point, if there are any initiatives, whether or not in relation to videos or indeed other content on the website, which provide us opportunity for greater flexibility, we will of course seize that. But I don't think I would recommend, and I don't think any clerk would recommend, that you want your council to be in the vanguard of that in the event that there are challenges. We want to provide as safe and as compliant a website as we possibly can, consistent with the spirit and the letter of the legislation and regulations, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Graham Parker, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's strange how one can read the same regulations and come to exactly the opposite conclusions. I very much sympathise with what Councillor Mann said. I also support the reflections made at the Budget and Policy Committee. I think the amount of work and the quality of the work that's gone into making sure that we're compliant is absolutely splendid. And I also only have a problem with this aspect. Now, I do understand the resource implications and the difficulty and the costs involved in subtitling videos, particularly sorry, I got some feedback there, sorry. Particularly in the numbers that we're talking about. It could run into thousands of pounds to comply completely. Having said that, deleting videos historically denies everyone of the facility. What we could be doing on the one hand is effectively denying people with hearing difficulties of full access, but deleting them denies everyone of any access. And that, I am absolutely certain, isn't the either the spirit or the purpose or the letter of the regulations. I've looked at the regulators' website, and it looks to me as though they're going to be very understanding, particularly to smaller authorities that they know will start off in a position like ours. So I look at regulations 6 and 7, and I see that they do allow for the town council to declare a disproportionate burden and effectively to declare an exemption. It's got to be reviewed yearly, but if we say that on the one hand, the costs of doing this are disproportionate, and on the other hand, the number of times that we're asked for access in a certain format is relatively small, then the indication even now from the regulator seems to be that they'll treat that with a very soft touch. Now, following Councillor, sorry, because the other thing is that we don't seem to be required to do this finally until September 2021, I believe. If that's so, then that gives us time to talk to the regulator anyway. But even if it's not, I would be in favour of declaring. I'm sorry, I keep getting people somebody talking to me. Am I the only one?
Sorry, Councillor Parker. Unfortunately, Councillor Venning, I am unable to mute, and I think that's where the feedback's coming from, but I can't mute him, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I would follow Councillor Mann's view that we should work to declare an exemption by virtue of a disproportionate burden, which is the phrase used in the regulations. And it seems to me that that's the right thing to do. I think this council has an exemplary approach to making the record of their meetings accessible to everyone. So, yeah, if Councillor Mann has a proposal to make along the lines of that, I would be happy to support that.
Councillor Mrs. Mann.
Yeah, I think at the very least, because this is an issue that was raised at council, I believe with some force, at least initially, on the recording of videos in the first place. I think we need to have a discussion about it as a policy, because to suddenly change our policy around recording them is quite important. So my suggestion would be that we at least have a look at the regulations and find out what's going to happen, and look at some of the other smaller councils and what they're doing, and see how people are approaching it, rather than making a decision forthwith to just start deleting our meetings in the public interest. So to that end, I guess I would say that we should retain the videos currently in the same way that we've done with the PDFs, and set out a statement that basically says the accessibility requirements have imposed a disproportionate burden. Personally, if I can just speak to it and then maybe have a thing at the end, I think we could easily, if somebody did want them closed captioned for the purposes of being able to have them for themselves, one meeting being closed captioned would be a reasonable amount of money for us to spend to have it transcribed for an individual for a particular purpose. And if that was something that had to be done, then it had to be done. But in my opinion, it's a record, we're not putting this out there as a matter of content on our website. Is merely a record, like a newscast is a record. And therefore, I think there's some retention issues. Even if we were to delete them from our website, there's some questions that we have at council about what we should do about retaining those for our own purposes, because they are much more informative than the minutes are as to what's happening at council. And I know that as a new councillor, when I joined council, I went back and actually looked at the historic meetings of council in order to try and understand how meetings were conducted and understand how members interacted, to sort of get an idea of what kinds of issues had been raised at council. So I think they're very instructive, not only for someone in particular who might have an issue with a planning application, but also for new members and for just general public information for the youth of today to find out how we conduct government. So I think making a decision like this, just because of the possibility of having violated this new legislation, would be a mistake to do without real debate on the issue. And the last thing I would just mention is, with regard to that, I have looked up what the enforcement measures are, and I can read them to members, because I think it's quite important to recognise that they're not going to enforce this very heavily at first. It says in the monitoring enforcement process detail that the monitoring body will share reports and will work with the owner of the website or apps before further enforcement action is going to be taken. So should we fall afoul, it sounds to me very much like the approach that they're taking is, we're going to work with you and see if we can help you keep that information available and retain the information for the public without having to do this kind of a draconian measure. So I think if you look at the guidance more fully on enforcement, it definitely weighs on the side of saying keep good information that's in the public interest and don't use this as a reason to get rid of it. So that's my recommendation, is that we do keep it and we come up with a disproportionate burden argument for it as council.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. I'm going to ask Carl next, then I've got Councillor Williamson, then Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I think there's probably a fairly straightforward way through this, and I suspect that the easiest way to do it is just to raise a query with the regulator in relation to our operation, and I think that will pick up the points that Councillor Mann and Councillor Parker have raised. If the regulator is relaxed about that, then I think that gives the council a sound basis for going forwards. I think there just is one general point which, and this isn't about this legislation or these regulations, but if you look at principal authorities, their practice is very standard, and that is that usually within a range of 3 to 18 months, the historical record of videos is not kept. And that is long before these regulations come in, and that's for a combination of reasons. It's about storage cost and capacity. It's about whether or not it is appropriate to actually have double records, because bear in mind, and I think Councillor Mann made the point, well, you know, she was comparing the record of meetings to the minutes. Well, legally, the minutes are the record of the meeting and the overriding record of the meeting at the point when they become confirmed. If there is a contrary record, which is published and held by the council, all you're doing is presenting the possibility for greater challenge in and around what those minutes are. And that's the reason why principal authorities have adopted the standard practice of not retaining a long and historic archive in terms of what there are. So separate to this, there is a different conversation on another day to be had about at what point we actually do delete historic records, because you don't, I mean, bear in mind, I think we were probably one of the first in the country to actually go to video in council meetings. We have got an archive which I suspect is larger than any other council in the country, and at some point we're going to have to think about how we rationalise that in terms of our data protection, or not data protection, but our information management principles, document retention and disposal. And it is never a good practice to keep anything indefinitely. So we do need to have a think about that at a time in the future. But if you're happy for us to, Madam Mayor, what we can do is we can vary the wording which is in there to say, refer to the regulator for a view on appropriate retention in the circumstances.
Thank you. That seems a good idea. Councillor Mann, I'll come back to you. How do you feel about that?
I like that. The only thing I would suggest is that I would like to see if I was to come up with a policy for myself, I would have said that the retention of them should be just a bit longer. But I agree with you entirely, Carl, that actually the length of time in which some of the meetings have been left on the council website has been probably past their sell-by date. And that issue of retention of documents and videos, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree we should have a policy that's very clear so that we can defend ourselves. I just don't think the policy should change forthwith, basically, and without that discussion.
Councillor Williamson, did you still wish to speak?
Very briefly, I would say, I think 3 things. The council was an early adopter of videoing, as the clerk has said. It would be tragic to throw out, to use a cliche, the baby with the bathwater, in that we have an archive of records. Yes, there should be a cap on it for the reasons the clerk mentioned, and I would be supportive of what Councillor Mann has spoken on 3 occasions in this debate.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Graham Parker.
Thank you. Councillor Mann put forward a proposal that I've said I'm happy to second, and I think the clerk's addition is very sensible. I just had one thing. as Councillor Mann suggested, we're not the only council that's facing this issue. As your representative on DALC, if it's your wish, I'll put a request out through DALC and NALC to see what current feeling is around the town councils and the parish councils.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. I think that would be most helpful. So have we got an amendment here, Town Clerk, to the proposal?
We do. I think effectively the documentation as submitted with one variation is being recommended for approval. The variation is that in relation to the specific reference to the treatment of videos, that is currently deleted, and we insert instead that we seek advice from the regulator as to the treatment and the extent to which disproportionate burden could appropriately be applied in those circumstances. I think otherwise the recommendation is as is. The only observation, if I may, that I would make in relation to Councillor Parker's point, I think it would be helpful to have that feedback, but I think the flip side of that is please bear in mind that I think also it is probably the case that until the coronavirus regulations came in, that we were the only council in Devon which was actually live streaming council meetings. Therefore, we do find ourselves in a slightly different position in relation to them. And the other councils which are live streaming at the moment almost universally won't have the facility to live stream physical meetings that we have unless they actually choose to make that investment. So we are in a slightly different position to the rest of the sector within the county.
Right, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Mann.
Just a question. Does that mean that we need to also, we would need something in the accessibility statement as a holding thing? I just wondered, because obviously if that needs to be done before the 23rd of September.
We will cover off the historic videos in relation to that, but what we will be, because the accessibility statement is a statutory document, but it's read in conjunction with the route plan, the roadmap, if you like. What the roadmap is doing is that is saying these are the things that we will continue to do in order to improve the levels of compliance we've got. So we acknowledge in the roadmap at the moment that we do not have complete compliance. What we will do is incorporate within the roadmap an element which actually then says this is what we're doing in relation to compliance for videos, and that will form part of it. I think the points that have been made about the regulator being generally likely to be understanding are absolutely correct. I think it'll be the same as it was for GDPR. But of course, I think different regulator, but as they said with GDPR, we will be understanding for the first 6 months. We will be mindful for the next 6 months, and after that we absolutely expect you to be complying with what there is. I'm not saying it'll be the case with this, but you will see a graduated approach from the regulator, I'm absolutely sure, whereby over time they will become more robust as these systems bed in, and it's just about demonstrating that we are behaving reasonably, and I think what you have suggested is perfectly reasonable in the circumstances.
Thank you. So we've got a proposal there which has been slightly amended. Any other questions on it? Can we put it to the vote now then, please? Those in favour, please show. I think that's everybody. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Well done. Okay, we now move on to items circulated for information only. Service reports. To receive for information the following service reports. 1, General Manager. Nice succinct report this time. Thank you very much, General Manager. Any questions? Comments? Right, can we just note that report then? Thank you very much for the update. We move on now to the Town Hall and Butchers Hall and Works Department. I think it showed that there are many positive things going on, and quite a bit of interest in the Butchers Hall, which I thought was quite interesting and very positive. Councillor Mrs. Parker.
Yes, a very useful report. I just had one quick question. I wondered whether the rule of 6 affected the choir and similar activities. It obviously doesn't affect markets, but would it, is that a gathering as far as Butchers Hall is concerned?
Could I ask the General Manager to deal with that one, please? Thank you.
We're only obviously a day into the changes in the legislation. I think we need to assess over the next few days to actually see what the implications are with regards to some of these activities and some of the events which are operating either within the Butchers Hall, on Bedford Square, or other events which are happening down the Meadows, etc., and then make that judgment call. I'm not really comfortable at this stage to make a decision or have a strong opinion on that at this stage. Probably within the next 5 to 6 days, I would say that I'll be in a position to actually provide a bit more clarity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, any other questions or comments on that? Can we note that report? Thank you. Little Three Pannier Market, I'm afraid that's not being closed yet, I don't think, has it? We will have that at the next round of meetings. Is that correct, General Manager? Yeah, he's nodding his head. Town Clerk?
Sorry, we do have the Pannier Market report, as in the manager's report with the paperwork, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
I think you were referring to the Town Hall and Markets consultative group.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Pannier Market report. So another positive report. Any comments or questions on that, please? Can we just note that report then, please? Thank you. Finance and other matters. Little A, report of the assistant to the town clerk. Any comments, questions? No, somebody's took the property unit update. I thought was interesting and good to see that there's some movement there. So well done to everybody involved in that. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Mrs. Smollicum, for that report. If we move on now. Just had a message from Councillor Lewis to say he's leaving the meeting. He's sent me a message. Town Hall and Markets Consultative Group meeting. Those are the ones, sorry, those are the ones that we will receive at the next round of meetings, please, General Manager. You can, thank you. Tavistock Bid Company Limited, minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of February and 17th of March. They're both enclosed, quite historic now because things have moved. I think the first one was before we had the coronavirus pandemic, so long time ago. Any comments, questions on that? Councillor Williamson, please.
As members know, I'm delegated to director on that. What I would say is that we've been meeting by Zoom throughout the lockdown and there were no minutes until recently. So the next collation of minutes will be soon from the last meeting. We're meeting again tomorrow night and the agenda is about bid 3, which is the election or the vote for a third round of Tavistock bid. Madam Mayor, you're aware of my comments on the matter, and the clerk has advised me as to the value of the bid to the town council, and so I will go forward with a very positive attitude to it going to bid 3. Unless members have anything else to add, they can contact me privately about it if they want.
Thank you. I was hoping that we were going to have something come to council certainly in the next couple of rounds of meetings about the bid to see what, so the council can debate and formulate its position with regard to bid 3, so we know very clearly and early in the debate what we think about it and if we're going to support it or whatever. So if we can have that, that would be most useful. Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Crawford, please.
Sorry, excuse my ignorance, but what is bid 3? I don't quite understand what that is.
Sorry, we've had 2. The bid only lasts for, is it 3 or 4 years? And we've had 4 years, and we've had 2 rounds of bid. So and each time it finishes, then there has to be a vote by the members to make sure it goes on. And this will be the 3rd round that we're coming into next year. So that will be bid 3. Is that clear? Yeah. Any other questions to Councillor Williamson about the bid or comments about that? Okay, move on to item D, which is West Devon Borough Council report, to receive the report of West Devon Borough Council from Councillor Hipsey, which I'm grateful to Councillor Hipsey for the report that he's provided us with. It's very informative, well laid out, and good news in a number of things. Can I raise a question with it? Item 7, planning enforcement cases. There seem to be an awful lot of current planning enforcement cases for Tavistock, 37 in Tavistock North, 9 in Tavistock South East and 12 in Tavistock South West. Can we find out why there are so many and what's going on with them? Because you know, if there's an enforcement issue, then it needs to be dealt with and it needs to be removed from the list. Councillor Mrs Ewing, perhaps you could shed some light on this, please.
Sorry about that. Yes, there is a list that we get sent confidentially, she adds. But I have to say, some of the cases go back nearly 20 years in some cases. They're so old. But yes, it's meant to be a confidential issue as to how many there are and what's going on. But as I say, and Councillor Parker will probably clarify, that some of them are extremely old and have no validity, you know, today. But we keep saying that and they don't get taken off the list.
Can I ask Councillor Parker to comment on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, enforcement cases are a matter of public record. I think Councillor Hipsey. Sorry?
Oh, sorry, I said that out loud, didn't I? Why aren't we allowed to discuss
You did indeed. No, you're not allowed to. Sorry, the existence of an enforcement case is a matter of public record. The details of an enforcement case, apart from what the breach is, i.e. the evidence, who complains, the name and address of the person being complained about, is a confidential matter. So you'll find the list, the breach on the public record, but you won't find the details on the people's details. Can I ask Councillor Ewings, in my time as a borough councillor, we used to meet, I think, once every 3 months with the enforcement officer to discuss the enforcement cases in our ward, and not to agree, but to indicate which ones, from our knowledge of neighbours and people affected, shouldn't be a high priority and probably shouldn't even be on the list anymore. And that was kept under control under the supervision of the head of practice. So it was all open, but the ward members' views were taken into account about priorities. Is that still the case?
Yes, it is still the case. And that's where I said some of them probably should have come off and they haven't yet. Because we do meet. There was a lot more on that when we first started. Yes, they do have the meetings, but I'll be honest with you, we haven't had any since COVID. So, and I should imagine a lot more breaches have gone on while COVID's been going on as well.
I mean, some of the breaches of Madam Mayor are as small as inserting windows without glazing bars when a planning permission says that it should have glazing bars. Others are much more major, but the numbers in that note don't particularly surprise me, I have to say.
Thank you for that, Councillor Parker. I had a query about one probably about 18 months ago and was basically told to keep quiet about it. And I see it's still something that's on the list. So perhaps that's something I can raise through DMNL and see if we can get something done about that, please. Okay, thank you. I don't want to push Councillor Mrs Ewing on the spot, but I see there's mention here of Meadowlands Leisure Centre. Is there any update on that, or is this the most up to date?
There's been a meeting this afternoon with an update with what Fusion are putting forward. Then all the financial implications that are there for West Devon. There are 3 proposals coming forward, and basically next week, next Tuesday afternoon, is going to be an extremely difficult meeting.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your comments, Councillor Mrs Ewing. Councillor Parker?
May I ask a question, please? I mean, it does seem unfair to put twin hatters. I mean, nothing if they're not bothered about it, but to put our twin hatters on the spot for somebody else's report. Do we have a facility? I don't even know whether Councillor Hipsey is watching this live streaming, but would we have a facility to bring him into the meeting as if he was here and question him? Not tonight, but for the future.
Can I ask Town Clerk, please, to comment?
In terms of the practice during coronavirus, what we've said is that those interventions, because that also obviously includes the County Council, it includes interventions from the public, and those sides will be by written representations. But absolutely, once we get back to normal proceedings, physical proceedings, that facility is there, and they are invited into the chamber, and they have the opportunity to respond to points as and when they're raised. At this stage, as I say, during the coronavirus, we're working off written representations for the cohort of those who might fall into the category of, for lack of a better way of putting it, external contributors.
Thank you. Right, any other comments about this report? Councillor Mrs Mann?
I just wanted to second what you'd said, which is that this was really easy to read and it was really informative and really good report. So well done, Councillor Hipsey.
Thank you. Right, we move on to E, project update to receive any additional oral update in connection with Tavistock Townscape Heritage Initiative Scheme, Guildhall Gateway Centre project. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've nothing to add to the reports which were put to the Budget and Policy Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. F, to receive any update from or questions to council representatives serving on other outside bodies in connection with the work of those bodies. Any reports, Councillor Parker? Can you unmute, please, Councillor Parker?
Yeah. Sorry, I lost the picture for a second. Two things to report back. One from DALC and one from the World Heritage Site. I'm working on DALC. DALC has asked me to coordinate their response to the government's white paper on planning for the future. So if this council has any comments to make on that white paper, then I'll be your contact point. Can I remind people that there's a webinar on this very subject run by DALC on Thursday. I've spoken to the chap who's running it, and he's taken me through the areas he's covering, and it will be a very, very informative and helpful webinar if people would like to sign up for it. We're now on the World Heritage front. I'm working with World Heritage on a review of their supplementary planning document, but we're trying now to synchronise that with West Devon's supplementary planning document and conservation policies. So all of these things are beginning to come together. I'm meeting next week with World Heritage, the Joint Local Plan team, and West Devon's conservation team officer to hopefully get that moving and bring it all together.
Thank you, Councillor Parker, for that. Any other comments, Councillor Williamson?
The Oak Rail Forum, which is the forum intended to promote the reconnection of the regular services between Oakhampton and Exeter, is meeting on the 8th of October. There have been no meetings during the lockdown. So if any members have any comments, of course, there is stuff in the media about lines reopening that have been, opinion has been divided about same, and that the routes have been affording utility for tourists to enjoy the line, and then somebody wants to reopen a railway on it and they don't like it. I don't know if the same situation applies to the service between Oakhampton and Exeter, because the line is still there and it's not affording such utility, but I'm happy to take any comments from council to that meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. If I can report on Kingdom House, we are slowly operating for our user groups. We've worked really hard to get things ready to reopen, and so far it's been so good. Not everybody's coming back and keen to be back in the building, which is good. Any other reports from groups, user groups? Councillor Mrs. Mann, please.
Yeah, I alternate with Councillor Hutton on Tavistock District Chamber of Commerce, and their meeting is this Thursday on the 17th. It was due to be in the Bedford, but unfortunately, due to the rule of 6, they've had to cancel the in-person meeting, which would have been the first one. So we're quite upset about that. But that does mean that anybody could go along, and the guest speaker is going to be Councillor Neil Jory from West Devon Borough Councillor on the Zoom meeting. And obviously there's no cost at this time, so you could, if you were interested, hear what they're doing to support businesses in the area, if anybody who else was interested in joining us. It's quite early in the morning on a Thursday morning, so before work. But if you'd like a link sent to you, I can forward a link to you so that you could join the meeting as well and listen to what Councillor Jory has to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Any other reports from outside groups? Any reports from or feedback from members who following their attendance at any training sessions? Councillor Mrs. Mann.
Yeah, I went to a training session that was about rebuilding communities after COVID. It was online, and the big focus there was around the possibility of creating unitary authorities. So I just thought that was of great interest, and apparently there'll be some interesting papers coming forward on that issue of trying to consolidate some of the district level councils.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting time and possibly a time of change. So we need to do what we do need to be aware of what's going on. Councillor Parker.
I was also at that session, and I have to say that it was like so many other sessions that I've been involved in on devolution. I'm afraid it was people talking without information. Most of it was speculation and in a vacuum. And I ended up just saying that we've got a white paper coming out next month in October. And really, I think we should use our time more productively and wait for the white paper so that we can see what's in government's mind. I didn't find it very helpful.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. Any other feedback from training? Right, we move on then to item 11, to receive such communications or reports as may be submitted by the Town Mayor. I have a small amount of good news. The Borough Council allowed Tavistock Town Council and Oakhampton Town Council to apply for a discretionary grant from the government grant pot, and we are being awarded a sum of £25,000. So it's a small amount in relation to our budget gap, but every little amount helps. So that is a step in the right direction, I feel. Councillor Parker.
I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Mrs Parker for her tenacity in pressing for that grant to be applied for.
Yeah, I think we were already going to do that anyway. So yeah, but thank you, Councillor Mrs Parker. So we've been looking at every aspect that we possibly can. So excellent, good. Okay, item 12, urgent matters brought forward at the discretion of the town mayor. I don't have any. So exclusion of the press and public. So we now need to move into part 2. So if people leave the meeting now and then rejoin in about 10 minutes with the new code, password and the new sign in place. Thank you.